Priority Pass adds a new lounge of fees, we're going to try to fly the new United Polaris Studio, and Delta announces their new business class. This and more in today's airline news roundup. Big favor before we dive in is to give this a thumbs up to help out the algorithm. If you know someone that might benefit, then share this with them. Starting off with Priority Pass, we might be seeing more fees. This can end up being extremely bad or moderately good with an interesting middle ground. The Alaska Lounge in SFO is now an option with the caveat that there's additional fees and terms. You have to have a Priority Pass membership, you're using up a visit in case that matters, have to be flying One World, and there's a $15 fee. This is a genuinely beautiful lounge, and I think it might be worth it if you are flying and you have a few hours and you want a place to relax. Obviously depends on you, but 15 isn't unreasonable and you can kind of treat it like a co-working space. Even better is that they have a barista that makes drinks and they're pretty good. Especially when the robots in SFO want $6 or $7 per drink already. On all my visits, it's been extremely empty and might also be why the change is happening. So a big reason for this is that Alaska is cutting routes at SFO and there's just less potential flyers. At the same time, I don't expect it to get swamped and crowded off the bat because there are a lot of good options nearby. The club at SFO is a few doors down, about 50 steps. It can be a pretty busy lounge in the morning and after work, but people like it and it's not bad at all. Also, a lot of people would argue that the food at the club is better than the food at the Alaska Lounge. The most interesting question is whether this is Priority Pass testing a new level. As you know, they have airport lounges, and they also have restaurants that are basically not viable for our purpose, but might still make sense if you have some older cards like the City Prestige. They also have relax and unwind options, as well as spa, rejuvenate, and refresh ones. Technically, additional fees isn't a new thing. For example, the Virgin Atlantic Clubhouse in LAX was initially on Priority Pass as a free option, and then it was removed, and now it's back, but it's paid. You still have to have a Priority Pass membership and you're using up a visit, and there's an additional fee of $35 per person. It did initially feel like a one-off, but I'm now wondering whether this is a new market for them. The potential positive being that there might be more strong lounges that end up joining, especially for current lounge deserts like LAX. It's not like LA doesn't have lounges, it's one of the busiest airports in the US. In the past, they have had lounges move in and out of Priority Pass, including Virgin Atlantic, Alaska, as well as Korean Air. Having a fee allows them to open up this avenue without getting swamped. Airport lounges are in a weird spot given the wavy nature of flights. Kind of why Priority Pass existed in the first place. The original goal of lounges, especially ones by airlines, was as a pit stop for their elite status members or people flying premium cabins. That's still the case, especially for the big US ones, but it's a bit different for the international ones. For example, Virgin only operates 2 flights a day from LAX to London Heathrow. So immediately before those flights, it's extremely busy, but there's a big lull in between them. Enter Priority Pass. Instead of having weird shifts where the lounge opens for 4 hours, closes for maybe 4 or 5, and then reopens for another 4, and the employee doesn't know what to do in between, it can be open all day. At the moment, the lounge is open from 8 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. and operates as 2 regular shifts. This means more people employed and less dead time. Even with this new additional fee, access might be limited between 12:30 p.m. and 4 p.m. and also 6:30 p.m. and 10 p.m. A lot of people get angry about this, but it's to make sure that the frequent flyers and people that are flying upper class can access the lounge. Okay, back to us and this new potential level. What's the best case? My hope is that more lounges, especially good ones, end up opening up their doors. Especially if it's nice premium lounges that are worth it, I wouldn't mind a copay. The potential downside and what I'm worried about is a lot of mediocre lounges trying to charge as well. In that case, it kind of defeats the purpose of Priority Pass. Yeah, curious what you think and whether this is going to be a growing trend and do you think it's good or bad? One reason why I'm even comfortable sharing my travel is due to today's sponsor, Delete Me. You might not know this, but your home address is probably searchable online. Do me a quick 10-second favor. Search for first name, last name, and street name. Data brokers collect and sell this information. Even if you're not concerned about doxing, it still increases the risk of identity theft. A bad actor can look up your name and then see if your social has leaked on the dark web. If yes, they can use these data broker sites to get other key information like current and past addresses, phone numbers, and even your mother's maiden name. Back in the day, I tried to remove this stuff myself and it took hours. It also wasn't very effective because it felt like you were playing whack-a-mole. Delete Me makes it super easy and I've been using them for almost 2 years. In that time, they've reviewed over 120,000 listings from more than 150 data brokers, with 98 of them having my info. It reviews thousands of listings every month, so almost 4,000 for April. and it gets stuff removed, so April was a big month. Depending on the plan you have, they also send monthly reports. Looking at April, which is my 20th privacy report, instead of me spending time searching every day and submitting removal requests, it does all of this in the background. On average, Delete Me removes over 2,000 pieces of data in your first 2 years. If you want to join me and protect your personal information, then check out joindeleteme.com/AskSebby and use promo code SEBBY for 20% off their US consumer plans. Speaking of lounges, we are seeing Southwest's pipeline expand. Southwest is trying to move upstream, and they have to add services that the new competitors offer. Lounges are said to be coming soon, and they have new spaces secured in Honolulu, Nashville, and also Denver. This is in addition to the 2 prior ones announced, Dallas Love Field, as well as Austin. I know a lot of people aren't happy with the whole Southwest change and the whole philosophic side of things, but it's kind of worked out. Stock price isn't always the best measure, but it's a lot closer performance-wise to Delta than it is to Frontier or Spirit over the last 12 months. Also, given everything going on with the fuel crisis, it ended up being the right move. On the other end of the stick is Spirit Airlines, which might end up being government-owned soon. The current fuel crisis is significantly worsening their situation. They're on the doors of liquidation unless they get a bailout. One idea currently being floated is the government taking an equity stake in Spirit. Here they would get a cash infusion to address the fuel prices, and the government would have a stake. The argument for it is that it's a net good for consumers. For some airports or routes, Spirit might be the only option. For example, in Fort Lauderdale, Spirit has almost a 30% market share. Not having it as an option means less access for some people. The counter-argument is that all the airlines are dealing with the same problem, so is Spirit Airlines too big to fail, where they have to be saved? Especially when most of this is a function of operational decisions and high debt and mounting losses. Even though I haven't flown them and I'm arguably unaffected, I'd still prefer more competition rather than less. Same reason why I'm happy that United is launching a new Polaris product in order to better compete with American and Delta. We might also be flying it today. We have a flight from Houston to SFO, there's 64 seats in business, and 56 are booked, so 8 available for upgrades. At the moment, we're number 8 and 9 on the upgrade list with a batch of other 1Ks. Oftentimes though, when you're 2 people and there's not that much upgrade room, you're in a really bad spot. If there's only 1 seat left and they can't upgrade both of you, they'll upgrade the next solo person that isn't a group. Given that risk and the fact that even being number 8 is pretty risky, we're using plus points. We ended up using 40 plus points, so 20 each, to move up the list. Last night when I did it, it moved us up to number 1 and 2. This morning we were still 1 and 2, so I removed the request and then re-added it, and now we're upgraded. 9F and 9L in the new bulkhead seats. I do take a lot of screenshots for pretty much all of these trips I take, whether it's finding availability or strategies I think about in terms of upgrades or what I'm doing. Let me know if it makes sense to walk through or do future videos on. Okay, so we actually ended up heading to the airport after filming this and technically did a pit stop to get some barbecue. We did end up flying United Polaris Studio and it's pretty awesome. Mandy will have a full video on her Mandy Roams channel this weekend if you are into plane vlogs. The too long didn't watch though is that we were both impressed with the hard products. The studio is only on the first 4 rows of both cabins. There's 2 cabins, so there's 8 seats, but they're a lot comfier. For the international routes, when they do fully launch, there is a $500 extra fee to get these seats. In the short term though, for these domestic familiarization runs, it was free to select. We ended up picking these seats about 6 hours before the plane took off. We do have the actual long-haul product booked for Singapore later this year, so it should be interesting to try that out. The food is going to be different for the long-haul product and also some of the soft product stuff with the amenities, but the hard product is going to be the same and I'm impressed. Even if you just think it's okay, more competition's still better. Speaking of which, a few days ago, Delta announced their new business class product. The design process took 2 years and will show up under A350s and also A330s. Taking a look at the pictures for the A350s, it's a reverse herringbone setup, so the ones facing sideways diagonal and the outside ones face towards the windows, while the inside ones face towards the middle. These designs are going to pop up on over 800 aircrafts in the next 5 years. The long-term vision being that 90% of Delta One seats will be suites with sliding doors by 2030. Maybe it's not fair, but I feel like United's moving a lot slower. On United's end, their goal is to have over 30 Dreamliners with the new elevated interior by 2027. Still a good thing by all means because it's progress, but Delta had these sliding doors since August 2016. United's finally adding them pretty much 10 years later, and still not that many aircrafts. Finishing up with United, they are cutting Polaris Lounge access. It's going to be for some partners, which sounds bad, but I'd argue that it's mostly good for a lot of us. As a reminder, United has two types of lounges, United Clubs and Polaris Lounges. Clubs are the more standard ones and the less impressive ones. Polaris Lounges are more long-haul business. So for example, for Club, you can buy a membership, and there's more than 45 clubs worldwide. That means you can get in by paying $750 a year or by getting their flagship card, and you have access when you're flying, even if you're flying economy. United Clubs are a seat, some drinks and snacks, and maybe a nice place to relax if it's not too busy. Definitely a lot more old school though and less feature rich. In contrast to the 45 clubs, there's only 6 Polaris Lounges, and they're going to be in Chicago, Houston, LA, New York, San Francisco, and Washington Dulles. United has some pretty strict rules, so in order to get into Polaris Lounges when you're flying United, you actually have to be flying long haul. Think Trans-Pacific, Transatlantic, Transcontinental, so coast to coast, long haul Hawaiian, or to some South American destinations. Anything too short like Guam, Canada, or Mexico is considered United Business, and you only get into United Clubs. If you're flying from SFO to LAX, you don't have access because that route isn't long enough. The rationale with this is that it minimizes crowding. In the past though, if you were flying business class for a long-haul flight of any Star Alliance airline, you could have access. Star Alliance is the biggest alliance and has a lot of airlines. I'm not going to read all of these, but some big examples being Air Canada, Asiana, EVA, Singapore, and Turkish. So for any of these airlines, in the past at least, if you were flying long-haul first or business, you were good to go. The main issue being that these partner flyers were taking up room from United flyers. With the new change, they cut off access to most airlines, and the only ones that are going to work are Lufthansa, Swiss, ANA, Air New Zealand, ITA, Austria, and Brussels. Again, for a lot of us that do award travel, Singapore, EVA, and Turkish are big missing players. So for example, let's say you were in LAX and you were taking one of the 2 Singapore flights that leave every day. Singapore doesn't have their own branded lounges and instead rely on partner lounges. Star Alliance also has their own lounge there, and to be fair, it is a nice lounge. So in the past, you had a bunch of choices, but now Polaris is out of the equation. So on one hand, it makes a ton of sense. The potential downside though is if these airlines end up, I guess, maybe retaliating. Also, in case you're curious, the ones that kept Polaris access are the ones where they have joint ventures with. So for example, ANA being a big one. Air New Zealand is a smaller one, but they haven't partnered since 2016. They also have a pretty big joint venture with the Lufthansa Group. Reminder that Lufthansa Group is a conglomerate of Lufthansa, Swiss, Austria, Brussels, and ITA. They do have a joint venture of Air Canada, but Air Canada doesn't operate any long-haul flights from the US, so a non-factor there. The counterpoint against retaliation is that United is one of the founding members of Star Alliance, along with Air Canada and Lufthansa, so they kind of run the group. The current chairperson of Star Alliance is the CEO of Air Canada, and before that, it was United CEO. United is very much in a power position here. Main idea for a lot of us that do enjoy Polaris Lounges, it should be less hectic moving forwards depending on what airline you're flying. On a side note, if you want to learn about cards to get points and miles in order to fly first or business, and you want to support the channel, we have links on the website, AskSebby.com, and also down below in the description box. Also, thank you to Delete Me for sponsoring today's video. Check out joindeleteme.com/AskSebby for 20% off their US consumer plans. If you made it to this point, leave a plane emoji in the comments down below and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions. Number 1, what are your thoughts on the new United Polaris Studio? Number 2, is Spirit too big to fail and should they be bailed out? And lastly, number 3, would you want more priority pass lounges with additional fees, or do you think that's a slippery slope? Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favorite, thumbs up, share this, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.